I buried something in my backyard in 1963, and last week my grandson almost dug it up. If he had opened that box, everything my family believed about me would have shattered in an instant. By the end of this story, you'll understand why some secrets are kept not out of shame, but out of love so deep it requires silence. Before we begin, drop a comment below with your country and what time it is right now where you're watching, whether it's sunrise in Nairobi, midnight in Australia, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France. I want to know. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't just sit back. Tell me where in the world you are. Now, let's dive into the story. It was August 15th, 1963, and I was 22 years old, standing in the bathroom of the Greyhound bus station in Montgomery, Alabama. The air was thick, so humid you could practically drink it, and the smell of diesel fuel and cheap soap burned my nostrils. I remember looking at myself in that cracked mirror, my brown hair pulled back in a ponytail with a blue ribbon, wearing a yellow sundress with white polka dots that my mama had sewn for me just 3 weeks earlier. My hands were shaking as I gripped the sides of that porcelain sink. The white tiles on the floor had a pattern, little black diamonds in the corners, and I counted them over and over. 14 tiles from the door to the stall, 14 tiles between my old life and whatever came next. That's when I heard the door swing open behind me. The hinges squeaked, that high-pitched sound that makes your teeth hurt. I looked up in the mirror and saw her, Dorothy Mae Williams. She was 47 years old, but looked 60, with gray hair tucked under a blue silk scarf and wearing a dress the color of rust. She carried a brown leather suitcase that was held together with a belt because the latches were broken. "You the girl?" she asked, her voice raspy from years of cigarettes. I nodded. My throat was so dry I couldn't speak. "You got the money?" I reached into my purse, that white vinyl clasp that was supposed to look expensive but fooled nobody, and pulled out an envelope. Inside was $300, every cent I'd saved from working at Murphy's Five and Dime for 2 years. My fingers left sweat marks on the paper. Dorothy took it without counting, stuffed it in her bra, and looked me dead in the eyes. "Once we do this, there ain't no going back. You understand that, baby?" I understood. God help me, I understood. But what I didn't understand was that the woman I was about to meet would change everything I thought I knew about myself. We left that bus station and walked 6 blocks in the blazing heat. I could feel my dress sticking to my back, and my feet were burning in my white patent leather shoes, the ones with the little heel that I thought made me look sophisticated. Dorothy walked fast, her suitcase banging against her leg every step, and she didn't talk, not one word. The houses got smaller as we walked, paint peeling, screen doors hanging crooked. A dog barked somewhere, that deep, threatening bark that makes your stomach drop. I saw a group of children playing in the street with a ball made of rubber bands, and they stopped to watch us pass. One little girl couldn't have been more than 6, wearing a pink dress 2 sizes too big, stared at me like she could see right through to my secret. "This is it," Dorothy finally said, stopping in front of a small house with green shutters and a porch that sagged in the middle. There was a garden in front, tomatoes mostly, staked up with bamboo poles and twine. Someone had planted marigolds along the walkway, orange ones. I remember thinking how cheerful they looked, how wrong that seemed. Dorothy knocked 3 times, paused, then knocked 2 more. A code. The door opened, and there she stood, Vera Johnson. She was a tiny woman, maybe 5 feet tall, with skin the color of coffee with just a splash of cream. She wore a white apron over a gray dress, and her hair was pulled back so tight it made her eyes look stretched. But it was her hands I noticed most, small and delicate, with long fingers that looked like they could play piano. Later, I'd learned she'd wanted to be a concert pianist, but that was a dream black women from Mississippi didn't get to have in 1938. "Come in quick," Vera whispered, looking left and right down the street. "Can't have neighbors seeing." Inside, the house was spotless. I mean spotless in a way that told you she cleaned because if she stopped moving, she'd have to think. The living room had a brown couch with a white doily on each arm, a coffee table with a glass ashtray shaped like a flower, and a picture of Jesus on the wall, the one where he's knocking on a door. The irony of that didn't hit me until years later. "Sit down, child," Vera said, and I noticed her voice was gentle, nothing like Dorothy's raspy sandpaper. "You want some sweet tea?" I shook my head. My stomach was in knots. "How far along are you?" "3 months," I whispered, "almost 4. She nodded slowly, studying my face like she was memorizing it. "And the father?" My eyes filled with tears. I hadn't cried once since I'd seen those 2 pink lines on the test Dr. Morrison had done. But now, sitting in this stranger's living room, smelling lemon furniture polish and something baking in the kitchen, cornbread, I think, I broke. "He died," I managed to say. "Car accident, May 17th. He never knew." That was the truth. James Patrick O'Connor, 24 years old, red hair that curled when it got humid and green eyes that crinkled when he laughed. He'd worked at his daddy's garage, and his hands were always stained with motor oil, no matter how hard he scrubbed. We were supposed to get married in July. My mama had already bought the fabric for my dress, white satin with lace at the collar. The night he died, he'd been driving home from poker night with his cousins. A deer ran out on Highway 31. He swerved, flipped his truck 3 times. The sheriff said he died instantly, like that was supposed to make it better. "Oh, honey," Vera said, and she sat down next to me on that brown couch. She didn't touch me, but I could feel her warmth. "I'm so sorry." "My parents can't know," I said, wiping my nose on the handkerchief I kept in my purse, the one my grandmother had embroidered with my initials, E.R.M., Elizabeth Rose Mitchell. "They'd die of shame. In our town, in our church. They'd never recover." Vera nodded. "What's your plan after?" "I'm supposed to be visiting my aunt in Tennessee for the summer. That's what I told them. My aunt's in on it. She's the only one who knows the truth. She'll say I stayed longer, that I was helping her after her surgery." What I didn't know was that Vera had a different plan, one she wouldn't tell me about until it was too late to say no. "I need you to understand something," Vera said, standing up and walking to the window. She pulled the curtain back just an inch and looked out. "What you're asking me to do is illegal. In this state, we could both go to prison. Dorothy, too." "I know. I have nowhere else to go." She let the curtain fall and turned to face me. "That's what I thought, too. 25 years ago, I was in your shoes, pregnant, scared, alone. The man I loved had been lynched for looking at a white woman the wrong way. I was 17. The air in that room got heavy. I felt like I couldn't breathe. There was no one like me back then, no one to help. I tried to do it myself with a coat hanger and some whiskey." She paused, her hand unconsciously moving to her stomach. "I almost died, bled for 3 days, lost the baby and my ability to ever have another one." "I'm sorry," I whispered, though the words felt useless. "Don't be sorry, be smart." She sat back down, closer this time. "I'm going to help you, Elizabeth, but not the way you think." My heart started pounding. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm not going to perform an abortion. I'm going to help you have this baby." No! I stood up so fast, I knocked over a small table with a lamp on it. The bulb didn't break, thank God, but it rolled across the floor. Sit down, Vera said, and there was steel in her voice now. Not mean, but firm, the voice of a woman who'd survived things I couldn't imagine. Just sit down and listen. I sat. My sister lives in Memphis. She's been trying to have a baby for 8 years. 8 years of prayers and doctor's visits and heartbreak. Her name is Ruth, and she's a good woman, a teacher. Her husband owns a printing shop. They have a house with 4 bedrooms and a yard with a swing set they bought 3 years ago, hoping. I don't understand, I said. You're going to stay with me for the next 5 months. You'll help me around the house, keep out of sight, and when your time comes, I'll deliver your baby right here. Ruth and her husband will come down from Memphis, and they'll take that baby home and raise it as their own. You'll go back to your life, and everyone will think you spent a long summer in Tennessee. I couldn't speak. My mind was racing. This wasn't what I'd planned. I'd come here to end this, to go back to my life like nothing had happened, to eventually marry someone else and have a family when I was ready, when it was proper, when everyone would smile and congratulate me instead of whispering behind their hands at church. I can't carry a baby for 5 months. People will notice. Not if you stay here. Tell your aunt you need her longer. Write letters. I'll mail them from Tennessee. I have friends there. Why would you do this? Vera's eyes got wet, but she didn't cry. Because 25 years ago, someone should have offered me this choice. Because Ruth deserves to be a mother. And because that baby you're carrying deserves a chance at life. I put my head in my hands. The room was spinning. I need to think. You have until tomorrow morning, Vera said. Dorothy leaves on the noon bus and she won't come back. This is a one-time thing. I held up an old photograph. This is Dorothy, Vera, and me taken 3 weeks after that conversation. See how I'm sitting? Turned to the side, my arms crossed over my stomach. That was October 1963. I was starting to show. But the worst part? I still hadn't told them about James's mother. I stayed that night in Vera's guest room. It was small, with yellow wallpaper that had little roses on it, and a bed with a metal frame that squeaked when you moved. There was a window that looked out onto the backyard where I could see a clothesline and what looked like a vegetable garden. A Bible sat on the nightstand, King James Version, the leather cover worn smooth from handling. I didn't sleep. How could I? I lay there listening to the sounds of the house, the refrigerator humming, a clock ticking somewhere, Vera's footsteps in the hallway around midnight when she got up to use the bathroom. Outside, crickets sang their endless song, and somewhere far away, a train whistle blew. I thought about James. God, I thought about James. The way he used to kiss my forehead when he thought I wasn't paying attention. How he'd take me to the lake on Sunday afternoons and we'd sit on the dock with our feet in the water, making plans for our future. The house we'd buy, the kids we'd have. He wanted 4, I wanted 2, we'd compromised on 3. The dog we'd get, a golden retriever. We'd already picked out the name, Buddy. All of that was gone now, buried with him in Oakwood Cemetery under a headstone that read, Beloved Son and Brother. They hadn't added father because no one knew, no one but me. And now Vera. I put my hand on my stomach. For the first time since I'd found out, I let myself feel it, the tiny swell that my clothes still hid, the fact that there was a life in there, James's child, half him, half me, the last piece of him that existed in this world. The tears came then, hot and silent, soaking the pillow that smelled of lavender and starch. Around dawn, I heard Vera in the kitchen. The smell of coffee and bacon drifted under my door. I got up, splashed water on my face from the basin on the dresser, and went to face her. "Morning," she said, not looking up from the stove. "I made enough for 2. We ate in silence. The bacon was perfect, crispy but not burnt. The eggs were scrambled with cheese and a little bit of pepper, toast with butter and strawberry jam, orange juice in a blue glass. It was the best meal I'd had in weeks, since before James died, when food still tasted like something. "I'll stay," I said. Vera nodded like she'd known all along. "Good. We'll call your parents after breakfast." The phone was in the hallway, black and heavy, with a rotary dial that clicked when you turned it. My hands were shaking as I dialed the number, 7 digits that I'd known my whole life. My mother answered on the third ring. "Mitchell residence." "It's me, Mama. It's Elizabeth." "Oh, honey, how's Tennessee? Is your aunt feeling better?" The lie came easier than I'd expected, maybe because I'd been rehearsing it in my head all night. "She's doing better, but Mama, she's gonna need me longer than we thought. The recovery is slow and she can't do much around the house." There was a pause. In that pause, I heard my whole life. I heard Sunday dinners and Christmas mornings and the way my mama sang hymns while she did the dishes. I heard my daddy reading the newspaper in his chair and my little brother Tommy, just 14, practicing his trumpet in the garage. "How much longer, sweetheart?" "Maybe until Christmas. I know it's a long time, but—" "Christmas? Elizabeth, that's 4 months away." "I know, Mama. I'm sorry, but Aunt June really needs me, and I can't just leave her." Another pause. I could hear her thinking, weighing duty against desire. That's what I loved and hated about my mother. She always chose duty. "Well, if June needs you, then you stay. But you write to us every week, you hear? Every single week." "I will, Mama, I promise. And you come home for Christmas, no matter what." "I will. I love you, baby girl." "I love you too, Mama." I hung up the phone and leaned against the wall. Vera stood in the doorway to the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "The first lie is always the hardest," she said. "How many more will there be? Depends on how good you are at writing letters." The next 5 months were the strangest of my life. I lived in that little house with Vera, and slowly we became something like friends. Not quite. The situation was too unusual for that, but something. She taught me how to make her cornbread. The secret was buttermilk in a cast iron skillet. I helped her tend the garden. We listened to the radio in the evenings. She loved Patsy Cline, and we'd sing along to Crazy while we did the dishes. My body changed. Every morning I'd stand in front of the bathroom mirror and see someone new. My breasts got bigger, my hips spread, and my stomach grew and grew until there was no hiding it. Around month 5, I felt the first kick. I was lying in bed, reading a letter from my mother, filled with news about Tommy's school play and the new pastor at church, when I felt it. A flutter, like a butterfly, was trapped inside me. I gasped. Vera was in the doorway instantly. "What's wrong?" The baby moved. She smiled, and it was the first real smile I'd seen from her. That means everything's progressing right. Strong baby. I put my hand on my stomach and felt it again, stronger this time, more insistent, like the baby was saying, "I'm here, I'm real, you can't pretend I don't exist." That's when I started crying. Not a sad cry, not a scared cry, just crying. The release of 5 months of holding everything in. Vera sat on the edge of my bed. "You can still change your mind. If you want to keep this baby, we'll figure it out." "How? How would that even work? I can't go home with a baby. My parents would disown me. The whole town would—" "Then don't go home. Stay here. Or go somewhere new. Memphis, Chicago, New York. Women do it all the time." "And work what job? Live where? I have $97 left to my name." "I'd help you." I looked at her, this woman I'd known for 5 months, who'd taken me in when I had nowhere else to go. "Why? Why would you do that?" Because I see myself in you, Elizabeth, and I want you to have choices I didn't have. But just when I thought I'd made peace with my decision, something happened that would change everything. It was December 3rd, 1963. I remember because it was exactly 2 weeks before my due date, and I'd been counting down the days like a prisoner counts down to freedom. I was in the kitchen peeling potatoes for dinner when I heard a car pull up outside. Vera looked out the window and went pale. "Get in the back room, now." "What? Who is it?" "Now, Elizabeth." I moved as fast as a woman 8 months pregnant could move, waddling to the guest room and closing the door. Through the crack, I could see Vera smoothing her apron and going to answer the knock. "Mrs. Johnson? Vera Johnson?" The voice was male, official sounding. "Yes. I'm Detective Harrison with the Montgomery Police. I have a few questions about a woman named Dorothy Mae Williams." My heart stopped. "I don't know any Dorothy Williams," Vera said, and her voice was steady as a rock. "Records show you were seen entering your home on August 15th of this year. We have a witness." "I don't know what you're talking about, officer." "Mrs. Johnson, Dorothy Williams has been arrested for performing illegal abortions. We found names and dates in her records. If you helped her in any way, you could be facing serious charges." Through the crack in the door, I watched Vera stand up straighter. She was maybe 5 feet tall, but in that moment she looked 10 feet taller. "I run a respectable home, Detective. I take in laundry and do alterations. If someone came to my door asking for directions or selling something, I might have let them in for a glass of water, but that's all." "Do you mind if I look around?" "Do you have a warrant?" Silence. "Then no, you may not look around. If you want to search my home, you come back with a warrant. Until then, good day." I heard the door close. Footsteps. Vera appeared in the doorway to my room and her hands were shaking. "Pack your things, quietly. We're leaving tonight." We waited until dark. Vera made phone calls. I heard her whispering urgently in the kitchen, but I couldn't make out the words. Around midnight, a car pulled up with its lights off. A man got out. Vera's brother-in-law, Marcus, come down from Memphis. "Can't believe we're doing this," he muttered, loading my small suitcase into the trunk. "Ruth is going to lose her mind when she finds out." "Ruth doesn't need to know all the details," Vera said sharply. We drove north through the night. I sat in the back seat, watching Alabama slide past in the darkness. Small towns with their single stoplights, farms with silos that looked like rockets in the moonlight, the occasional lit window where someone was up late, living their normal life, not running from the law. Around dawn, we crossed into Tennessee. I'd never been so happy to see a state line. Marcus pulled up at a gas station. "I'll get us some coffee. You two stretch your legs." While he was inside, Vera turned to me. "Elizabeth, I need you to understand something. Once we get to Memphis, once Ruth and James take this baby, you can never contact them. Never."
"I know. I mean it. No letters, no phone calls, no showing up years later wanting to explain. You give them this baby, and you walk away forever. Can you do that?" I looked out at the sunrise painting the sky orange and pink. Somewhere inside me, James's baby kicked. "I can do that." I lied. We arrived at Ruth's house around 8 a.m. It was a beautiful house, white with black shutters, a wraparound porch, a maple tree in the front yard that was just losing its last leaves. The swing set Vera had mentioned stood in the backyard, visible from the driveway. 2 swings, a slide, a little yellow playhouse, all waiting. Ruth came out before we'd even parked. She was Vera's twin sister, I learned later, though you'd never know it to look at them. Where Vera was small and quiet, Ruth was tall and vibrant. She wore a red dress and had her hair styled in a way that must have taken an hour. When she smiled, her whole face lit up. but it was the way she looked at my stomach that broke me. Pure, undiluted hope, joy, love for a child that wasn't even born yet, that wouldn't even be hers by blood. She looked at me like I was bringing her the most precious gift in the world. Because I was. "Oh," she breathed, coming down the steps. "Oh, look at you. How are you feeling? Are you comfortable? Do you need anything?" Her husband, James, same name as my James, which felt like a cruel joke from God, came out behind her. He was a big man, over 6 feet, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He shook my hand gently, like he was afraid I'd break. "Thank you," he said. "You'll never know what this means to us." I wanted to say, "You'll never know what this means to me either. You'll never know that I'm giving you the last piece of the only man I'll ever love. You'll never know that this is killing me." Instead, I said, "You're welcome." Labor started 2 weeks later, December 17th, 1963. It started with cramps that felt like bad period pains, then got worse and worse and worse. Vera had turned Ruth's spare bedroom into a makeshift delivery room, clean sheets, towels, a basin of hot water. She'd done this before, she assured me, delivering babies for women who couldn't go to hospitals for one reason or another. Ruth wasn't allowed in the room. Too emotional, Vera said, so it was just Vera and me. The pain was indescribable. I've had 2 other children since then, proper hospital births with doctors and nurses and drugs, and neither compared to this. This was primal, animalistic. I screamed until my throat was raw, grabbed Vera's hand so hard I left bruises. "Push," she kept saying. "You're almost there. Push." And I pushed like my life depended on it, pushed because I wanted it over, pushed because some instinct older than thought told me to. At 4:47 a.m. on December 18th, 1963, I heard the most beautiful sound in the world, a baby crying. "It's a girl," Vera said, and I heard tears in her voice. "A perfect, beautiful girl." She cleaned the baby quickly, wrapped her in a yellow blanket, and before I could say no, before I could say wait, before I could say I'm not ready, she placed her in my arms. She was perfect, tiny and red and wrinkled, with a shock of dark hair and eyes that were trying so hard to focus. She had James's nose, that little upturn at the end, and when she wrapped her hand around my finger, I felt my whole world shift. 10 fingers, 10 toes, healthy as can be. I couldn't stop staring at her, this tiny person who was half me and half the man I loved more than life itself. The daughter James would never meet, the granddaughter my parents would never know, the life I was about to give away. "What are you going to name her?" Vera asked. "I can't name her," I whispered. "That's for Ruth to do. You can give her a name just for today, just for you, something to remember her by." I looked down at this baby girl, this perfect little miracle. "Caroline," I said, "after James's mother." I held her for 2 hours. Vera let me have that. Ruth and her husband waited downstairs, probably going crazy, but Vera stood guard at the door and gave me those 2 hours. I memorized everything, the way she smelled, like milk and something sweet I couldn't name, the little sound she made, the way her chest rose and fell with each breath, the tiny nails, the curve of her ear. "I love you," I whispered to her. "I love you so much, and I'm so sorry." Then Vera took her from my arms, and I never held her again. But what I didn't know, what none of us knew, was that 37 years later, she would find me. I stayed at Ruth's house for 2 weeks recovering. I could hear the baby crying at night. My baby, but not my baby anymore. Ruth had named her Sarah Elizabeth, keeping my first name as her middle name. a small kindness that felt like a knife to the heart. On January 2nd, 1964, Marcus drove me back to Alabama, not to Montgomery, too dangerous with the police investigation, but to a small town 30 miles from my hometown. From there, I took a bus home, arriving on a cold, gray afternoon. My mother cried when she saw me. "You're so thin," she kept saying, holding my face in her hands. "Didn't June feed you?" I'd lost 20 pounds since I left. Between the pregnancy and the grief, I looked gaunt, but everyone just assumed it was from stress and hard work taking care of my aunt. "She fed me fine, Mama. I just worked hard." My father hugged me stiffly. He wasn't a demonstrative man, and Tommy punched my arm and said, "You missed Christmas. It sucked without you." My room was exactly as I'd left it. White chenille bedspread, lace curtains, a bulletin board with pictures of James and me at the lake, at the county fair, at his sister's wedding. I took those pictures down that first night and buried them at the bottom of my closet. Life was supposed to go back to normal. That's what everyone expected, and that's what I tried to do. I went back to work at Murphy's Five and Dime, stocking shelves, running the register, making small talk with customers I'd known my whole life. "Sorry about James," they'd say, their voices dripping with pity. "Such a tragedy." If they only knew the real tragedy. 6 months later, I met Richard Parker. He was 28, a pharmacist at the drugstore down the street. Brown hair, blue eyes, average height, nothing like James, which was exactly why I said yes when he asked me to dinner. He was safe, predictable. He didn't make my heart race or my palms sweat. When he kissed me, I didn't feel lightning. I felt comfortable. We dated for a year. He proposed on a Saturday in June on the same dock where James and I used to sit, though Richard didn't know that. The ring was modest, a small diamond on a silver band, and when he slipped it on my finger, I said yes because I was 24 years old, and that's what women did. We married in November 1965. Small ceremony at the church. My mother cried. My father looked relieved. Tommy was the ring bearer, even though he was 16 and thought the whole thing was stupid. The wedding night, when Richard touched me, I closed my eyes and pretended. I pretended for the next 43 years. Richard was a good husband. I want to be clear about that. He never raised his hand to me, never cheated, never drank too much or gambled away our money. He provided, he was faithful, he was kind. And I was a good wife. I cooked his favorite meals, I kept the house clean, I smiled at his jokes even when they weren't funny. I hosted dinner parties and went to church every Sunday and volunteered at the library. We had 2 children, Michael in 1967 and Jennifer in 1969. I loved them fiercely, completely. But every birthday, every Mother's Day, every time I held them, I thought of Caroline, wondered where she was, what she looked like, if she was happy. Richard never knew. How could I tell him? What would I say? "Honey, before I met you, I had a baby and gave her away." It would destroy him. It would destroy us. So I kept silent. The only person who knew was Vera. We wrote letters for years. Careful, vague letters that never mentioned names or details. She'd update me. "The girl is doing well in school, straight A's. She wants to be a doctor." And I'd live on those crumbs of information. Then in 1988, Vera died. Heart attack, quick and sudden. The letter stopped and I lost my only connection to Caroline. I convinced myself it was better this way, a clean break. She had her life, I had mine, and never the two shall meet. I was wrong. March 14th, 2000. I was 59 years old. Richard was at work. I was in the kitchen making meatloaf for dinner, my hands covered in raw hamburger and breadcrumbs, when I heard the doorbell. I wiped my hands on a towel and went to answer it, expecting a neighbor or maybe someone selling something. Instead, I found myself looking at a ghost. She was 37 years old. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, James's nose, my eyes, wearing jeans and a blue sweater and holding a manila folder. "Is Elizabeth Parker here?" "Yes." "My name is Sarah Richardson. I think you might be my birth mother." The world tilted. I grabbed the doorframe to keep from falling. I don't know what you're talking about," I stammered. "Please," she said, and her voice cracked. "I've been looking for you for 3 years. Ruth, my mother, she died 2 years ago. Before she died, she gave me Vera's letters. Please, I just want to talk." I should have closed the door, should have said she had the wrong person, should have protected the life I'd built, the family I'd made, the secret I'd kept for 37 years. Instead, I said, "Come in." We sat in my living room, the same living room where Richard and I opened Christmas presents with our kids, where we'd hosted Thanksgiving dinners, where I'd lived an entire life built on a lie. Sarah sat on the edge of the couch, that manila folder clutched in her hands. Up close, she looked even more like Jane's. The shape of her face, the way she bit her lip when she was nervous. "How did you find me?" I asked. The adoption records were sealed, but Ruth had kept letters from Vera. Your name was mentioned once in a letter from 1964. Elizabeth Mitchell from Millbrook, Alabama. It took me 2 years to find you. You got married, changed your name. "Does anyone else know? Your father? My father died 5 years ago. Heart attack. And no one else knows. I haven't told my husband yet, or my kids." "You have kids?" She smiled, and it transformed her whole face. 2. Emma is 10, Jake is 7. They're amazing. I had grandchildren I'd never met. The realization hit me like a truck. "Why?" she asked suddenly. "Why did you give me up?" So I told her everything. About James, about the accident, about being 22 and pregnant and unmarried in 1963 Alabama, about Dorothy and Vera and Ruth, about holding her for 2 hours and never forgetting. "I wanted to keep you," I said, tears streaming down my face. "God, I wanted to keep you so badly, but I was 22 years old with no job, no husband, no way to support a child. My parents would have disowned me. The entire town would have. Do you understand what it was like back then?" "I'm not judging you," she said quietly. "I just needed to understand. I've thought about you every single day for 37 years, every birthday, every holiday, every milestone in my other children's lives. I wondered where you were, if you were happy, if you hated me." "I don't hate you," she said. "Ruth was a wonderful mother. She and Dad gave me an incredible life. I became a doctor just like I always wanted. I have a husband who loves me and kids who are healthy and happy. You gave me that life, but you came looking for me because I needed to know where I came from. I needed to see your face. I needed to tell you that you made the right choice, even though it must have killed you." We both cried then, just sat there on my couch and sobbed. We heard the garage door open. Richard was home early. Sarah stood up. I should go. "Wait," I said. "Wait, But Richard was already walking through the door, loosening his tie, calling out, "Honey, I'm home. Mr. Henderson came in with that prescription mix-up again, and—" "Oh, hello." He stopped, looking between me and Sarah, seeing my tear-stained face. "Richard," I said, my voice shaking, "this is Sarah. We need to talk." It took 3 hours. 3 hours to tell my husband of 35 years the truth I'd hidden our entire marriage. Sarah stayed. I asked her to, needed her to, because I couldn't have done it alone. Richard sat in his recliner, his face getting paler with every word. When he finished, the silence was deafening. "35 years," he finally said. "35 years, Elizabeth. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I wanted to tell you, but what? You didn't trust me? You didn't think I'd understand? I was afraid you wouldn't marry me if you knew." He stood up, walked to the window, looked out at the lawn he'd mown every Saturday for 3 decades. "I need some time. I need to think." He went upstairs. I heard our bedroom door close. Sarah touched my arm. "I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have come. I've ruined everything." "No," I said firmly. "No, this isn't your fault. This is mine. I'm the one who lied. I'm the one who kept secrets. You did nothing wrong." But the hardest part was still to come, telling my children they had a sister they never knew existed. We called a family meeting 3 days later. Michael drove in from Birmingham with his wife, Linda. Jennifer came from across town with her husband, Tom. Everyone sat in my living room, confused about why they'd been summoned. Richard sat in his recliner, arms crossed. He'd barely spoken to me in 3 days, slept in the guest room, went to work and came home, and existed in the same house as me, but not with me. "Mom, what's going on?" Jennifer asked. "You're scaring us." I took a deep breath. Sarah had offered to be there, but I'd said no. This was something I had to do alone. "I need to tell you something I should have told you a long time ago." And for the second time in 3 days, I told the story, watched my children's faces change from confusion to shock to something I couldn't quite name. When I finished, Michael spoke first. "Let me get this straight. You had a baby before you married Dad, and you gave her up, and you've been lying to us about this our entire lives?" "I wasn't lying. I didn't tell you." "That's called lying, Mom." "Michael," Richard started. "No, Dad, this is insane. My whole life has been a lie." Jennifer was quieter, but somehow that was worse. "Does she want to be part of this family?" she asked. "She just wanted to meet me, to know where she came from." "And now what? We're supposed to just accept that we have a sister, that you had this whole other life before us?" "You're not being fair," I said, my voice rising. "I was 22 years old, pregnant and alone and terrified. I did what I thought was best." "Best for who?" Michael shot back. "Because it sure as hell wasn't best for us. How do you think it feels to find out your mother is a completely different person than who you thought she was?" "I'm the same person I've always been." "No, you're not. The person I knew didn't keep massive secrets. The person I knew didn't lie for 40 years. "That's enough," Richard said, standing up. "This is hard for everyone, but we need to calm down." "Why are you defending her?" Michael asked. "She lied to you, too." "Because she's still your mother, and she's still my wife, and whatever choices she made 40 years ago, they don't change the life we've built together." I looked at Richard, stunned. After 3 days of silence, I thought he was done with me, but here he was, standing up for me. Jennifer stood up. "I need some air. This is too much." She walked out. Tom followed her. Michael sat there, his jaw clenched, his hands balled into fists. "Do you even know anything about her, this sister we apparently have?" "She's a doctor. She's married. She has 2 children, your niece and nephew." "Jesus Christ," he muttered. He stood up. "I can't deal with this right now. Come on, Linda." They left, and I sat there in my living room with Richard, the silence heavy between us. "I thought you hated me," I whispered. He sighed, rubbed his face with his hands. "I'm angry, Elizabeth. I'm hurt. I'm confused, but I don't hate you. I should have told you before we got married." "Yes, you should have." He sat down next to me on the couch. "But I'm trying to understand. 1963 was different. I get that. And you were so young. Does it change how you feel about me?" He was quiet for a long time. I don't know yet. Maybe, but we've been married for 35 years. We have 2 kids, 4 grandkids, a life together. That has to count for something. I never stopped loving you. But did you ever start, really? The question hung in the air. I wanted to lie. God, I wanted to lie so badly, but I'd done enough lying for one lifetime. I learned to love you, I said slowly. I wasn't my first love, but you became my truest love, the one I chose every day, the one I built a life with. And James? James was a dream, your reality, and I chose reality. He took my hand. I need time, Elizabeth, to process this, to figure out what it means for us. But I'm not leaving. We'll figure it out. But while I was trying to save my marriage, Sarah was about to discover something that would change everything again. 2 weeks after the family meeting, Sarah called me. Her voice was strange, tight and controlled. "Can you meet me?" she asked. "There's something I need to show you." We met at a coffee shop halfway between our houses. She had a newspaper clipping, yellowed with age, protected in a plastic sleeve. "I've been researching my father, James O'Connor. I wanted to know everything about him, where he grew up, what he was like, how he died." "Okay," I said slowly. "The accident report says he died on May 17th, 1963. Highway 31, rolled his truck avoiding a deer." "Yes, that's what happened." She slid the newspaper clipping across the table. "But that's not all that happened." I picked it up. It was from the Millbrook Gazette, dated May 18th, 1963. "Local man dies in accident," the headline read. I'd read this article 100 times. I kept it in my Bible for years before I couldn't bear to look at it anymore. But Sarah pointed to a line I'd never noticed, a small paragraph at the end. "Police report that O'Connor had been drinking prior to the accident. Blood alcohol level measured at .12, well above the legal limit. Witnesses at Turner's Bar reported O'Connor left the establishment around 11 p.m., visibly intoxicated." The world stopped. "No," I said. "No, that's not right. James didn't drink. He maybe had a beer or 2 on special occasions, but he didn't." "I found the police report," Sarah said gently. "I have a copy. It's all there. He wasn't just driving home from poker. He was driving drunk." I couldn't breathe. 40 years I'd carried this perfect image of James, my first love, my true love, the man who died too young, too tragically, the man whose daughter I'd given up because I couldn't bear to raise her without him. And he'd been drunk. He'd been at a bar. He'd gotten behind the wheel knowing he was impaired, and he'd killed himself through his own stupidity. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" I whispered. "Because you were 22 and grieving and pregnant, because everyone wanted to protect you, because his family was ashamed." His mother, Caroline, she came to visit me after the funeral, brought me casseroles, held my hand while I cried. She never said a word. She probably didn't want you to know her son had driven drunk, that he'd been careless with his life, with your life, with the life of his unborn child. I put my head in my hands. I gave you up for him, for the memory of him, for this perfect love story that turned out to be a lie. "It wasn't all a lie," Sarah said. "He loved you, didn't he?" I thought so, but if he loved me, really loved me, he wouldn't have gotten behind that wheel. He wouldn't have been so reckless. People make mistakes, Elizabeth, even people we love. I went to see James's mother that day. Caroline O'Connor was 84 years old now, living in a nursing home with advanced Alzheimer's. Most days, she didn't know her own children. But when I walked into her room, something flickered in her eyes. "Elizabeth?" she said. "Little Elizabeth Mitchell?"
Yes, Caroline, it's me. You're so old, she laughed, that same laugh I remembered from 40 years ago. We're all old now, Caroline. She patted the bed next to her. I sat down. Did you come to tell me about the baby? I froze. What? James's baby. I knew, a mother always knows. I saw the way he looked at you at the funeral, saw how you held your stomach, and then you disappeared for months. Her eyes were suddenly sharp, focused. You had it, didn't you? My grandbaby. Yes, I whispered, a girl. And you gave her away? I had to. I was alone. I had no money, no husband. You never offered to help. Because it wasn't my place. You made your choice. She reached out and grabbed my hand with surprising strength. But I want you to know something. James would have married you. Despite what happened, despite his drinking, despite his mistakes, he loved you. I'm getting tired already this evening. We continue the rest of the story tomorrow. If you want to be part of our little family to listen to the continuation of my story and hear more whispers of wisdom and love, please subscribe and tap the bell. Let's keep these memories alive together.